Hi, it's Bumbleberry. Welcome back to Seduce Me Too. Alright, so we've got dark leggings, long knee-high boots. Basically, the boys have come to rescue us, and we met Eric's wife,
Oh,
or whatever.
wow. That looks really good on you.
Yeah, thanks, Iridessa. I blushed, getting used to the feel of the outfit. The corset wasn't tight, but it was still something new along with the rest of the garb. Matthew, however, smiled down at me and kissed over my forehead.
You look really cute.
Thanks.
Faye, Rabbit, you both should finish your preparations and head over to the Demon Lord's castle for the spell.
I think this time we should train with Rabbit. Do you agree?
I'll get us there, no problem.
Alright.
Just make sure we don't get stuck there or lost. No promises.
Oh my gosh, I was just about to say that. Okay, let's see. Okay, so basically they're like, we're gonna fight the Demon Lord too. This entire experience was not something I expected to go through, especially since now it was interfering with my wedding. I was trapped in the demon world under a curse I couldn't break without the Demon Lord being killed, and I was expected to wait. The entire journey to my room became one filled with mild anger within me. At least Matthew was here to help me through this, but I still couldn't help but let the situation sink underneath my skin. This wasn't fair at all. I knew Matthew could sense my anger as he lightly squeezed my hand, which was gently in his as he walked beside me. That was a weird sentence, sorry. Look at his little concerned face, Matthew. Stop scratching your butt.
Hey, what's wrong?
Just tell him. I let out a shaky sigh and looked to him, letting it go. I won't sing it. I won't. I'll try not to. It's just unfair, you know? This whole thing has become a large, complicated mess, and I gritted my teeth and squeezed Matthew's hand back. I didn't want to complain, as things were going to be fixed soon, but it was still infuriating to think that I couldn't do anything immediately. Matthew slowly released my hand and wrapped it around my shoulders.
Hey, don't worry about it, alright? Think about it as a vacation or something.
Yeah, you know, a vacation. Matthew grinned and nodded, hugging me slightly to his side. It would be cool if this castle had a pool. Do you think they've ever gone swimming in like a pool, like with a slide and everything?
Yeah, a vacation to, see new sights?
Thank you, Matthew. I couldn't help the amused smile on my face as Matthew tried to make me feel better. It was another reason why I adored him. He did his very best to make sure that I was happy. Look at the little face, so cute. Despite the crappy situation we were in, I was thankful for that. I wrapped my arm around him and nodded. Thanks, Matthew. Matthew smiled and nodded before kissing my cheek. Mwah!
You're welcome. Anything for you.
Aw, that's very sweet. Matthew and I continued to walk down the halls of the castle until we arrived at the same ambassador room I had slept in before. I guess that the room was mine for now. Stepping in, Matthew looked around in slight awe. Look at, what is with your face, man? You have a lot of very exciting expressions.
Whoa. Awesome digs.
Do you not like my normal room? It was almost like we had stepped into a hotel on vacation, except this one was forced until the end of a civil war. It's like that movie The Terminal, when like Tom Hanks is stuck in the airport. It was mildly messed up, but it was a situation we had to deal with. I walked over to the bed and sat down, letting out a sigh at feeling the softness underneath me. The bed was still as comfy as last night. Matthew, however, began to walk around the room, taking in the side of the decor.
This is a really fancy room. I wonder what room the others got.
I smiled, watching Matthew ponder for a moment before replying to his statement. Yeah, apparently this is the open ambassador's room. I was able to sleep here when I arrived. What happened to the ambassador? Matthew stared at me dumbfounded for a moment before slapping his forehead and shaking his head.
Right. Time's different here. Holy crap, I forgot about that.
You're so precious. Wait, huh? I became confused at what Matthew meant.
Well, how do I explain this without making it confusing?
Matthew rubbed the back of his head, staring at the fireplace before speaking.
Well, you see, time moves faster here compared to the human world. Like, much faster.
Ooh.
If I remember right, then I think the time difference is every 5 hours here is 1 hour there? Maybe?
Did you notice he added in extra words that weren't in the text? I did, because I'm reading. Anyway, wait, huh? So if I was here for a day, then... Matthew took a moment to do the math before nodding and speaking again.
Yeah, that's right. You were gone from the human world for about 5 hours.
5 hours? I was astonished. The time difference was really prominent and a little disorientating. Didn't that mean that time moved faster here? I was getting confused, holding my head and trying to unscramble my thoughts as they collided. But does that mean that in the first game then that Diana, immediately came after them when they left? Do you know what I mean? 'Cause she came pretty quickly. I will avoid jokes on that subject. Anyway, Matthew, however, rushed over and sat down next to me, hip to hip.
Hey, don't worry about it, okay? We found you, so that's all that matters.
I could only nod before looking at the ground. It was a lot to take in, but at least I wasn't really missing for a day in the human world. However, I was going to be here for a week, so in accordance to the time difference, I would be missing for more than a day. How is everyone going to react? I looked up at Matthew, now a bit concerned.
Huh? What is it?
What happened while I was missing? Matthew frowned and rubbed his head, running his fingers through the fluffy hair as he spoke, staring at his knees. My boyfriend got a haircut today, so I'm like, oh no, you still have fluffy hair there.
Well,
anyway.
When you didn't come with the rings, we got kind of worried and tried to call you. When you didn't pick up, we kind of panicked, but Irene and Iridessa decided to rush over to the house to see what had happened.
I don't know why anyone leaves me alone,
They
honestly.
came back, saying you were gone. We pretty much scrambled to use our magic to wipe everyone's memories, reschedule everything, and use the time to find out what happened.
Matthew pressed his lips together, most likely remembering what he felt during my absence. I felt bad, but there was nothing I could have done to stop it. Matthew shook his head and continued.
I guess we have to thank Simon for finding you.
Simon?
Without him, we wouldn't have figured out what happened.
What? Simon? Matthew nodded before stuffing his hand into his pocket and pulling out the infuriating stuffed animal. I can't believe he brought him with. Simon blinked a couple of times before looking up at me and giggling like he usually did. Simon! And Simon jumped from Matthew's hands into my arms and crawled up onto my shoulder, becoming immobile like a doll once he settled between my neck and shoulder. I gave his head a little pat before looking back to Matthew. Well, he was the one that hid the rings. I had to find him.
I know, but after you were taken, he helped us pinpoint where you were, and bam! Here we are.
Matthew chuckled a bit as he ruffled some of Simon's fur.
I guess this little fur ball was useful after all.
Aw, I could only smile before leaning over to kiss Matthew's cheek, making him gasp slightly.
Huh?
What are you so shocked for? We're almost married. Anyway, at least you found me. Soon we'll be able to go home and get married like we planned. It gave me a little hope to let that thought sink in. Soon we'd be able to go home. I was positive we would win this war and everything would work out just fine in the end. Especially because I'm being nice to Matthew and not a jerk face, so we will get the good ending, right? Right, you guys? He won't die. Matthew seemed to agree, nodding as well with a smile.
Yeah. We'll go home soon.
Aw, Matthew wrapped his arms around me and nuzzled the side of my head, making me softly giggle. My body felt relieved to have him near me, causing me to wrap my own arms around him. My heart was jumping with joy regardless of the situation we were in. Simon took the cue to hop off my shoulder and quickly skittered across the floor and up the fireplace mantel, resting on it with the decor that sat upon it. Matthew, however, soon released me and fell back onto the bed, feeling its softness.
Man, it's been so long since I felt a demon bed.
What are they? What? They're different? What's the difference from a regular bed? Matthew grinned up at me and crossed his hands behind his head, lounging back on the mattress.
Well, demons don't sleep in this world, so we get very comfy beds just so we can lay back and relax on.
Wait, demons don't sleep?
Nah, we're too paranoid that people will kill us in our sleep.
That makes sense. But doesn't he sleep with us most of the time? No? Then how the heck do you function?
Energy and food. As long as we have both, we can pretty much be awake 24/7.
The way that Matthew seemed relaxed about the whole thing made it seem like he liked being here. A part of me was curious on whether or not he liked being in this world more than the human world, but I had to remember. He went to the human world of his own accord. Besides, he was ready to marry me and live his entire life in my world. And he likes cake. Perfect. Matthew stretched and let out a groan before relaxing back onto the bedsheets, letting out a small yawn.
Oh, I'm tired. You want to hit the hay?
Let's do it. I nodded, feeling exhaustion run over me, causing me to lie back and cuddle up to Matthew, nuzzling into his shoulder. He chuckled before wrapping an arm around me.
I love you so much. I promise we'll get home soon.
Ah, Matthew, we love you too. I smiled, kissing his cheek before closing my eyes and drifting to sleep. Tomorrow was going to be a long day. However, as I opened my eyes, I found myself not looking at Matthew or in my bed, but I felt the cold ground beneath me and something tightly wrapped around my neck. Is it the chain again? Tell me it's the chain. What the? I looked down, seeing on my skin... Oh wait, so she's dirty and dusty. What was happening to me? I reached up and gasped once more as I felt a familiar collar on my neck, a chain dangling from the front and running behind me. I instinctively grabbed the collar, trying to pull it from my neck, but as I did, something yanked the chain connected to it and caused me to fall back, knocking the wind out of me. Ah! I turned my head to the chain pull to see a familiar imp demon glaring down at me and gripping onto my chain. It was the same imp demon from the vision Matthew showed me when Diana came around. But how could this be? I quickly grabbed the chain and tried to yank it from his hands, wanting to be free, but found no strength to actually pull it out of the imp's grasp. The imp merely cackled and pulled the chain again, making me fall forward onto my stomach. Ugh. I froze. This was another dream, and I could tell that Matthew was going to be the villain once again. My mind began to panic as I scrambled up to my hands and knees, looking around at the predicament I was in. I was in a large steel cage. My chain hung out between the bars and the hands of the imp guarding the cell. I had no neighbors, nor did I hear anyone else in the space with me. This was definitely a dream, and I needed to wake up before Matthew came around. Who knew what he would do with me? This was a dream, after all. More like a nightmare. I looked around the room, slowing my breath and trying to think logically. What could I do? The first thing was to do something about the chain around my neck, then I could try to break the door down somehow and be free. Seemed like a good idea. I quickly grabbed the chain again and swiveled on the ground to be on my bottom, locking my feet against the door and pulling the chain back. I managed to get some purchase, and luckily the imp couldn't manage to pull me from my struggle. Oh, that's bad. Okay, red lightning suddenly traveled down the chain and shocked the collar around my neck, causing me to release a soundless scream. My body became electrocuted in red light and energy, sending waves of pain through every part of me. As he finally stopped, I let out a gasp and fell back onto the ground, shaking from the aftermath. My body felt entirely jittery, and licks of pain brushed over my nerves from the shock. What the heck? I could barely look over at the imp from the pain I was feeling, seeing him smirk at what he had done. However, as soon as I saw the grin appear on its ugly lips, a foot jammed into the side of his head, causing it to buckle over. Matthew? Huh? Who is it?
You fucking pig fawn! What did you do?
Pig fawn? Hello! I thought his lower half was like dark blue. Why is it gray in the dream? Weird. My eyes glanced over to see Matthew in his demon form, glaring daggers at the fallen imp with his foot jammed into his cheek. As he looked at me, still angered with the snarl across his expression, I gasped, seeing the familiar cold gold color over his eyes. Evil Matthew had returned. Gingerly, he took up the chain and pulled me to the door, leaning in and keeping the chain beneath his head so he could bring my head as close to him as he could without me being pulled against the bars on the door. Staring into his eyes, I was surprised to feel calm, and almost hopeful that maybe this was a different Matthew, one who wasn't cruel and full of ill intent. Then again, he kept me in the cell and didn't release me, so that was a sign I was wrong. Despite this, he spoke calmly and almost comfortingly.
Did he hurt you?
Aww, my little pumpernickel. He's still scratching his butt, though. I don't know why. Of course, I nodded. Whatever the electrocution the imp had done made me feel like I was dying for a split moment. Matthew, in response to my reply, glared at the imp with a deadly pair of eyes, causing the victim in question to sleek back against the wall.
I order you not to hurt her. If she's hurt, then she can't give me proper energy, and I won't be able to rule this world properly. Do you know how much of a problem that would be?
Aw, it's not for love, it's for selfish reasons. Ooh, the imp opened his mouth to protest, and Matthew formed a knife in the air and chucked it into his open mouth. A splash of blood erupting from behind the imp's head as the knife embedded itself into the back of his throat. That's violent and a little unnecessary. With a garbled whimper, the imp slowly collapsed to the ground, dying at last. I, however, could only watch horrified with my hands over my mouth. What was going on? Matthew turned back to me and pulled my chain slightly, causing me to look back at him with fearful eyes.
There! Now he won't hurt you anymore.
Oh, yay! Why are you doing this? Let me go. Matthew's face slowly shifted to a cold, sadistic glare.
I would. But how will I know that you won't run away from me?
If you stop mass murdering people, probably won't run away. Just saying. I began to panic. I wanted to be free. I wanted to run, but Matthew here wasn't going to let me go, and I didn't want to stay in the cell any longer. Despite every fiber in my body wanting me to awaken, I couldn't. Ooh, can I be his queen? Do you think he'll let me? Or if I promise? Ooh, I don't know. Let's say make me your queen. This was crazy. He had me prisoner, a slave on his whim. However, he seemed to care enough about me to kill someone for hurting me. It was worth a shot. Matthew, however, let almost a bark of a laugh out.
Me, king of the demon world, marry a human? Like hell I will. Besides, even if I made you a succubus, your energy would be wasted.
Why would you make me a succubus? My heart broke into pieces, but my anger flared. This was not my Matthew. Why wouldn't he marry me? Rude. I gripped the bars and snarled at them to my captor, imagining the man in front of me as a stranger and not as the man I loved. What is wrong with you? Let me go! A violent cackle erupted from Matthew as he leaned close to me, pulling my chain harder and to pull me against the door.
That's okay. Get angry. You know what they say. Angry sex is always the best.
Oh, Matthew, it's creepy to hear you say that, but it's kind of fun at the same time. I snarled even harder, disgusted at his words. This was not the man I loved, nor would he ever be in my dreams. Matthew only let out a chuckle as he finally drew back and slid a hand up to the end of my chain.
I'm not in the mood to take your energy now. I'll come back another time.
Oh gee, how sad I must be. With a flash of blue energy, the chain in his hand vanished and reappeared above me, giving me enough slack to let me lie down, but only if I was directly underneath it. I grimaced and pulled at the chain, wanting to still be free from it, but only heard the chuckle of Matthew's cruel sadism as he turned and began to walk away.
You better be prepared when I get back.
Ugh.
I've got a world to rule after all. Can't spend all my time making sure you're ready.
Why do you want to rule the world, man? That sounds like a lot of trouble. Look at him just like, whoop, gone. A violent quake ran through my body, and I began to struggle harder, making him laugh as he left the hall out of my sight. Let me go! Let me go! I shut my eyes tightly, pulling and tugging as much as I could. Despite it being to no avail, I screamed once again, this time breaking the illusion around me and waking up at last. Why don't you just tell Matthew about these dreams? Let me go! I sat up, screaming through the air as my hands clasped themselves around my neck. My screams reverberated throughout the room, barely letting me notice Matthew falling out of bed beside me.
Whoa!
Were you sleeping, dude? Were you sleeping? I quickly looked over to the sound of a hard thump on the ground, seeing Matthew's curly head peek out from over the side of the bed. His hand ran over his hair as a pained groan escaped his lips. Oh my gosh. Hello, shirtless Matthew. Oh, you look so teeny. I can't think you're super cute shirtless. You look like you're 12, but you're still adorable. Ignoring what had just happened to me, I scrambled across the bed and slid off the bed to kneel beside Matthew. Luckily, he wasn't badly hurt, but he rubbed his head, obviously disorientated from falling out of bed. To add more insult to injury, Simon had crawled down from the mantel and began to poke at Matthew with his mini knife. Thankfully, the knife wasn't actually sharp, so all it did was prod and poke at Matthew's skin without drawing blood.
God, Simon! Simon, knock it off!
Simon makes me happy. I mean, not really, but his laugh kind of is amazing. Matthew flailed his arm, almost knocking Simon away with his hand. Taking the hint, Simon jumped onto the bed and began to hop around on top of it as his own distraction, while I looked at Matthew. I'm so sorry. Are you okay?
Huh? Yeah. I'm fine. Oh.
Matthew grimaced, stretching his back and neck before shaking his head and looking up at me, slightly bleary-eyed from sleep. You were
okay?
sleeping.
Or did you have another nightmare?
Yes, obviously. I looked down at the ground between us, remembering the nightmare I was trapped in. I could only nod, pressing my lips together, causing Matthew to frown.
I'm sorry. Do you want a hug?
Oh, let's hug. Yes, let's do it. Let's still hug. Despite the nightmare, I still loved Matthew, and I needed him with me. I knew the dreams I was having weren't real, and even if they were trying to warn me of something, Matthew was still the man I was going to be married to. The man I was going to be married to. Matthew smiled softly before swiveling onto his knees and hugging me to his body, laying my head on his shoulder. I wrapped my arms around him and closed my eyes, taking in his reassuring scent. As a set of knocks appeared at our door, however, Matthew and I shot our heads in the direction of the sound.
Oi!
Time to wake up! We got grub!
Oh, thanks, Sam.
Ugh, can you not call it that?
Matthew and I looked to each other before scrambling up onto the bed, forgetting that Simon was on it. I slid across the bed and sat down, trying to make it seem like I had just woken up, as Matthew tried to crawl over, but wound up making Simon release a heavy squeak.
Ah!
He's like the foil to everything. Once again, Matthew fell off the bed and landed on the floor, releasing another shout of pain.
Is everything all right in there?
Yes, James. We're just trying out some new exciting things.
We're fine.
Simon, cackling at Matthew's mistake, scrambled back up onto the fireplace mantle and became a doll once more as I cleared my throat. Come in. Oh, look at him. He's just like, I'm ready. I'm good. I'm cool. As the door opened, Matthew threw himself onto the mattress, placing his head on his hand like he had completely planned to kneel beside the bed as his brothers and their wives entered with plates of food in their hands. Maybe it was a subtle slip of the tongue because it's like they're stabbing me in the heart. Damien and Twilla, the ones who were carrying extra plates of food, stopped and stared at us with raised eyebrows. Damien, of course, looked over at the mantle and Simon before smiling and shaking his head, passing his extra plate to Matthew.
Thanks, bro. You're welcome, Matthew.
Here you go.
Oh, thank you. Twilla placed her extra plate in my hands and smiled before walking over to an empty space with Damien and eating. On the plates were sliced fruits, bread, cheese, and some sort of jerky. James and Sam, however, were the only ones who didn't start indulging in what was on the menu.
So, we have less than a week to prepare for the Demon Lord.
I still don't understand why the audio is so different for everyone. I know they're all using different mics and stuff.
You know,
but...
fuck me. But I'm excited as shit to finally get to kick his ass into the ground.
Let me hear that again, Sam.
So, we have less than a week.
You know, fuck me.
There you go.
I'm excited as shit to finally get to kick his ass into the ground.
Perfect. The other brothers seemed to agree, even Matthew. However, I was stuck on the nightmare that I had the night before. I unconsciously rubbed my neck, remembering the feel of the collar there. Doing so caught Iridessa's attention.
Hey, what's wrong? Did you hurt your neck?
I instantly looked up and stared, seeing everyone now look at me in curiosity. I shook my head violently, not wanting anyone to know what had happened. Come on, guys. You need a copy editor? You give me a call. I'm fine. I'm fine. The wives seemed unconvinced, but they nodded anyway. The boys, however, focused on the battle ahead of us.
So, do we plan on training like we usually do?
That seems to be the best plan. It's been a long time since we've actually fought in a battle.
Have you fought in one before?
The boys, despite the shame in their eyes, nodded slowly in unison. Shouldn't you know that if you're married to one of them?
Part of us living in our father's castle involved receiving the occasional unexpected visitor.
What does that mean, Eric?
Holy crap, man. I remember one time there was this group that just stormed in and tried to take on the old man, but he sent James to take care of him. I'd never seen James so pissed off before.
He's so proud.
That's because they threatened to burn the castle down if I didn't surrender. Obviously, that was out of the question.
Well, Sam, what about you when you got into those fights with the army generals? They weren't too happy about you being so testy with them.
They got cocky and thought they could push me around. Fuck 'em and good riddance.
There you go, Sam. Good old Sam. The more I listened, the more battle stories seemed more about James, Eric, and Sam. Damien obviously stayed out of the fighting, but what about Matthew? Well, did anything happen with
Sam,
Eric?
What about...
I don't remember them doing that. The more I listen, the more about it. Okay, so did Matthew fight? I looked to him, seeing him simply eat his food, staring down at his plate. Did he have nothing to add to the conversation? Let's get to know him better. What about you, Matthew? Matthew looked up at me in surprise, a piece of jerky wedged between his teeth and lips.
Huh?
I fought back, giggling at the sight, but everyone turned over and looked at Matthew. I relaxed a bit and waited. I was curious to see if Matthew had any stories of his own to tell. To my surprise, he swallowed the jerky in his mouth and shook his head.
No, I wasn't the fighting type. Never have been, really.
Aw, you precious little cupcake. I love you. My mind flashed back to him fighting Malix and how he managed to not only duck and dodge Malix's gun, but also make Swiss cheese out of the devil in question. Why would Matthew lie? Sam scoffed and spit into the fireplace, making us all look over at him.
What a crock of bullshit, Pipsqueak.
Thank you, Sam.
Bullshit! What
the hell is that supposed to mean?
Don't fucking play dumb with me. I remember you massacring an entire gang of Vince because they looked at your mom funny. I was the one who had to clean that shit up.
Thank you for your honesty. I suddenly went wide-eyed at Matthew, who in turn stared right at me with a fearful frown on his face. He got into fights here? I mean, I guess it was expected of a demon to at least get into one fight in their life, but Matthew and massacre?
No, it wasn't like that. It wasn't me.
What?
Like hell it wasn't.
Dude, shut up!
What?
Make me!
I will!
Ooh. Are you kidding me? You were just saying that you don't fight ever. Matthew, you are such an idiot. Anyway, Sam and Matthew jumped out of their seats and marched to each other, slamming their foreheads towards each other and snarling, fire burning in each of their eyes. I quickly reached up and pulled Matthew's arm, trying to bring him back to the bed. Matthew, calm down.
Sam, knock it off!
Despite Carrie also pulling Sam's arm, neither of us could pull our incubus away from the other as they battled each other with their eyes. I just imagined an intense staring contest. The air in the room became full of tense energy until suddenly both of the boys were swatted over the head.
Fuck!
Oh!
Ow!
Both of you! That's enough!
I was hoping it would be James. I looked up to see James holding his fist that he used to sock his brothers with the glare painted all over his face. Oh, his fist. For some reason, I imagined him, like, with a sock over the fist. Does that make sense? like a little sock puppet. Matthew and Sam looked up at their eldest brother, both irritated at being hit, but silent enough to know not to talk back. A moment passed before Sam stood up straight and shook his head, finally allowing Carrie to pull him back to the spot where they could both sit down.
Whatever.
Matthew, on the other hand, straightened up and continued to glare at James, almost in defiance. Something sparked in his eyes, something that made me worried, so I pulled his arm back, trying to catch his attention. Hey, come on. Matthew finally looked at me, slowly receding back to his normal gaze before nodding and rubbing his head over the newly forming bruise while sitting beside me.
Well, this is an interesting family reunion.
Isn't it? Diana's voice suddenly made all of us turn to the door to see her and Cero in the doorway with Diana leaning against the archway. As she pushed off and stepped in, Cero followed and closed the door.
Can we help you?
Possibly, if you all want to survive this war and go home. Especially you, my dear.
You better be talking to me. Okay, good. I was like, if she starts liking the wives better too, I'm gonna be super pissed. She looked over to me and crossed her arms under her bosom. What did she mean? Yeah, so we have to do stuff. What would the others teach me? Diana ran a hand through her hair, looking to the side as she listed off each leader and their skills.
Sergeant is a brute demon, bred from a nomadic tribe. He most likely teach you the ways of the brute demon, using your fists and speed to keep you alive. Shadow is, by definition, a shadow demon, so he'd probably teach you about dark magic, light manipulation, and assassination.
That sounds cool. I'll probably do that when I do James'
Rabbit is a wild magic-based animal demon, using her animal-focused energy as her weapon. She'd probably teach you how to do the same. Fae? I am honestly not sure. I know they can change their size and use elemental magic as well, but to be honest, I do not know what they would teach you.
What about you? Anna stared at me as if I had 3 heads. No one else seemed to oppose the idea, but I was genuinely curious. Diana pressed her lips together and looked away from me.
My hands are too full.
That's a lie.
Seto?
My lady is proficient with blades and enthrallments. I've seen her cause armies to fall to their knees and bark on her command.
Oh my gosh, that's intense. Diana glared hard at Cero, but I was pretty convinced that what Cero said was true. Diana was pretty powerful. Still, Diana as my trainer, what would come of it? We'll choose Diana a different time. I'm gonna choose Rabbit. Diana nodded. Rabbit was sweet, but I could tell that she was the wisest of the bunch. She'd be able to show me some ways to use the earth and defend myself. She was definitely the one. With that, Diana turned her on her heel and left the room.
Finish eating. Afterwards, you should start training.
Okay, sounds cool. Everyone in the room nodded their affirmation as Diana and Sarah left.
Well, it looks like we'll be busy for the next couple of days.
So, let me see, I'm doing Rabbit with you. Obviously, Brute will be with you. Shadow. And then either Faye or Diana with you, Damien.
This'll be fun.
Yeah.
Man, training's gonna suck.
Thank you. In real life, that would be my response.
It'll be worth it, though.
Okay, Damien.
Damien's right.
As we all finished eating, everyone left to either train or do things on their own. I left to start my own work, to determined to be prepared for what was to come. Is it sad that now this playthrough I'm thinking Eric is such a traitor? Because he got married to someone who wasn't me? The Demon Lord wasn't going to win. I wouldn't let him. Okay, so next time we're going to be trained by Rabbit. But I hope you guys all enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next time. Let me know what you think. I mean, should I have chosen Diana? Maybe if I die this route, I'll go back and I'll choose her. But I hope you are having a wonderful day, and I hope that you stay sweet.